question to you. You mentioned in one of your explanations that there are huge number of hyperparameters with which we can, tune the decision tree and get some good results. So restricting our discussion only to decision tree, what is the most popular and the strongest hyperparameter in your opinion, and why? Sharath, we are not able to hear you.
Sorry.
Sharath was checking whether you are active or not, Nitin. I mean, sometimes the interviewer also checks, right? Whether the interviewer is active or not. He frequently does that.
So the interviewee is checking the interviewer, huh? That's nice. That's the first time. Yeah. Yes, go ahead, Sharath. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just saying that I'll share my screen, and this is the screen, the cheat sheet. These cheat sheets are available on 360DigitMG website. Please use that. Download the cheat sheet.
Where are those available, Sharath? If I may view that.
Let me navigate you to that. Let me show you. So I will go to the website, 360DigitMG website, and under the learning resources, we'll come down, and this is the section where you see the cheat sheets. You'll be able to download that. When you click on this, it will ask for your basic details, name, number, and email. You can give those details. And once you give, the file gets downloaded into your system. And you will be able to see this file, the zip file, and you have all the libraries in compressed form. So I'm showing the decision tree.pdf file for you. This is the file. You will be able to access the same file. Please download from the website, as I have shown you the process. And keep this file very, very handy. It helps you to remember the hyperparameters. Now, coming to the question that Nitin have asked, we have decision tree classifier. This is one of the algorithm under sklearn tree algorithm package. We will have decision tree regressor, we have decision tree classifier, and many other variants of that. And if I increase the font size, this is the syntax with which we can try and develop our decision tree model. And you can see these are all the bunch of parameters that we can pass through. And like Nitin was asking, what is the most important parameter? Now, all of these play a very, very important role in decision tree to define the performance of the model. But the most important thing is the criterion that we use for defining your branches. When you're trying to grow the decision tree, it will basically allow us to measure the criterion to split, on what basis you are trying to split your data, right, from your branches perspective. So to do that, we use criterion, and criterion by default is Gini index, which is one of the measure which allows us to capture the homogeneity parameter, homogeneity aspect in the data. But we also have Gini index along with that entropy and log loss. This becomes very, very important parameter for me, at least for me, that I would think that this is important. And as I mentioned, it is the function which allows us to measure the quality of the split. And on top of that, along with this criterion, we also have the various other aspects, like you'll see max depth. So how many branches you want to create, what level of branches you want to create. You might want to restrict your growth of the tree with respect to these parameters. You can refine the growth of your tree. We can also do pruning, that is nothing but your controlling of the growth of the tree. Minimum sample split. So how many samples should be there in my branch to further split it? Minimum samples leave. So after splitting, how many records should be there in my result, in the final branch? so on and so forth. There are many such parameters that we have. But as I mentioned, the most important one is the criterion. And without this, there is no value to the branches that you are splitting, and you may not get appropriate growth of the tree. We need the best growth. It is also called as greedy algorithm. Decision tree is also known as greedy algorithm. So we are saying that try to have a hybrid plant which can give you a lot of fruits rather than having a very big tree which probably has too many branches, and there at the end of some branch you will have a fruit. Given this opportunity, for example, the mango trees, obviously you want a hybrid tree which can give you a lot of fruits, because it takes less time to the growth of the tree and you'll be able to get better results out of that. So you will become greedy for the information with respect to decision tree algorithm. And that can be happening with respect to the criterion that we are choosing. So for me, criterion. Yeah, Nathan.
Sorry, I moved to a different frame. I was just looking at that LinkedIn link that Bharani had shared. Sorry about that. Thank you, Sharath. So you claim that the criterion is the most important hyperparameter that one needs to choose before for a decision tree. And again, like I said, we are restricting our discussion only to decision tree. For all its shortcomings within the decision tree, what are the things that we can do is what you're trying to discuss. So Bharani, over to you. My question is specific again to decision tree. So what are the hyperparameters that you feel, or not you feel, what are the hyperparameters that are probably least preferred, or something that is not much of use in the decision tree? They exist in the decision tree in the sklearn, but are more useful when we go for ensemble techniques. Any such parameters are there? Would you like to explain about that? Are you expecting me to remind you that your mic is muted, Bharani? You're testing me, or it is accident?
But this time for a change, it is accident, Nathan.
two sequential tests is not.
But you passed both successfully. That's the best part. Okay. So yeah, I shared with you that this link, which can be shared on our YouTube channel, on the chat window.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Having said that, while there are plethora of regularization techniques or hyperparameters which people can experiment with, and a lot of interviewers ask hell lot of questions pertaining to hyperparameters from decision trees and ensemble techniques, because there are a lot of options available. And I would say not the least preferred, but the most obvious hyperparameter is number of estimators. That's number of trees that you want to run when it comes to ensemble techniques. And when it comes to decision trees, it's the maximum depth. Basically, I would say it's the most obvious. I would not say it's the most unimportant. For that case, none of the hyperparameters are unimportant. But I would say that if someone doesn't have time to experiment with different hyperparameters, then let your model run using the default hyperparameters. And the default options for each and every hyperparameter are defined just to ensure that your model gives the best results or somewhat good results in comparison to not experimenting at all. Yep. So I don't think there is any hyperparameter which is least important. Oh, yeah. And in almost all the algorithms, we'll have number of jobs, which is usually applicable when you have your GPUs and when you have more than one cores on your computers or servers. Usually on servers, you have more than one core, like dual core, octa core, quad core, so on and so forth. But on the personal computers, we most often than not do not have multiple cores. In those kind of scenarios, number of jobs becomes irrelevant, or it becomes redundant. Basically, you need not even use that. Yep, that's my take.
Okay, thank you.